Sometimes you just need to take the slips out and bowl defensively. And you also need to be careful with your computer's defense as well. If you need a VPN, go Nord. NordVPN.com/Kimber to get a 2-year contract with a discount, plus 4 extra months and gifts in some markets. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the show notes. So put in some dot balls and turn them into maidens via NordVPN.com/Kimber.
Morning, everyone, and welcome to the Scoreboard. Well, a lot to unpack here because, as a wise person once said, sometimes when you win, you really lose. And sometimes when you lose, you really win. And sometimes when you win or lose, you actually tie. And sometimes when you tie, you actually win or lose. And I am talking about Gaikwod's thumb. Gaikwod's massive thumb. Could his thumb be any bigger than it is right now? Why on earth was Gaikwod out on the field with his thumb in that state when they had the game completely in control? You could argue he shouldn't have been on the field even when the game was up for to be won, because clearly it was not okay. But certainly once they got ahead of that game, once the wickets started falling, that is the point at which you let, I don't know, MS Dhoni or Ravi Jadeja or Daryl Mitchell or Moeen Ali just cruise the game home for you. It's a bizarre thing because Gaikwod's thumb looks like it's going to be very important to them. You watch them bat today. They are still batting like it's 2022, 2023. They don't seem to have that ninth gear that some of these other sides have. There's clearly other things going right for this team, and I still rate them very high. But they're going to need Gaikwod to make a lot of runs for them. And if he keeps batting the way he is, they are a huge chance of winning this entire tournament. If he can't bat, they are not. What else did I notice in that first innings? I thought Unadkat hit really, really well. It's worth mentioning because the man struggles a lot. And I think it's either him or Shardul Thakur who are the most expensive IPL bowlers in history. And so you've got to give him credit when he bowls very, very good. But Chennai's innings did fizzle out. We kept kind of expecting the sixes to come. Shubham Dubey got a couple, but really didn't get away. Then Sunrisers went out, and for the first time ever, the market seemed to get it pretty much right, that Chennai were massively on top. And early wickets. I have been saying for a while there's going to be some kind of regression with Sunrisers. And Sunrisers fans have been very upset with me for saying this. Well, they currently have a neutral net run rate. What does that tell you? They have almost allowed as many runs as they have scored themselves. How is that possible with the amount of runs that they have actually scored? And one of the reasons that is possible is they had such incredible form with the bat, and that has just stepped back a little bit. Are they now more of a 50-50 win team? When the batting comes off, they're going to win. When the batting doesn't come off, they're not going to get anywhere near it. I don't know. Talking about bowlers who probably been struggling a little bit in this tournament, or certainly maybe struggling is the wrong word with Deshpande, but he hasn't been the Deshpande of old. If you're listening to Cricket 8 today, and you can now see those live watch-alongs on YouTube as well, I basically said that when Deshpande started going for runs early on, that was the best sign for Chennai I've seen in ages, because he usually takes wickets, and they all came after that. But there's lots of questions. Partharana went off the field as well. Sunrisers, we have to work out where we rate them at the end, but I still think that Gaikwod's thumb might be the most important thing that happened today. Sometimes when you win, you really lose. Sai Sudarshan for Gujarat, it's hilarious now. And I feel like I have unlocked a level on Sai Sudarshan by pointing out to him that he was consistent. He's like, well, if I'm consistent, surely I can go on and make more runs. Gujarat are a very predictable team, and they make a lot of decisions that are basic. Sending Shah Rukh Khan up the order today, I thought was a fantastic one. He batted beautifully as well. But overall, again, a bit like what we said with Chennai, they do feel like they're batting in a different tournament than some of these other teams. I thought it was really good bowling from Swapnil Shah to come back in. And you're going to be shocked that I believe this, but Cameron Green probably shouldn't be bowling anymore. Certainly, you can't rely on him for multiple overs. Virat Kohli looked really good in the chase, and he was on top of it. But I think the bigger talking point is the fact that Gujarat don't look like they can outscore anyone at the moment. They look like they can get pass scores at best. And Noor Ahmed and Mohit Sharma do not look like the bowlers we thought they were coming into this tournament. Nur Ahmed has bowled well in this tournament, so I'm not as worried. But he should have got Will Jacks out today, and he was bowling down the leg side over and over again, giving Will Jacks 3 swings. And Mohit Sharma, Natarajan has probably taken that position for the World Cup. If they want a death specialist, it's probably going to go to Natarajan. But Will Jacks is a big story in about 3 different ways. A, has he guaranteed his future in the IPL? Probably with that one innings. That isn't going to be an issue. Has he also changed Faf du Plessis' fate? Right? Is this it? If they're not going to make the finals, and they are most definitely probably not going to make the finals, they need a new opener. Do you just move Will Jacks up there? And it goes further. What does England do? Because they've got a stacked lineup and they've got another top order guy that they've got to think about. Anyway, on to the scoreboard. Remember, if you want to ask a question, Super Chat is the way to go. I've been broadcasting for 2 days straight, so Super Chat is probably all I have emotionally time for. Sunrisers started quite quick today. Again, even when they lost wickets, Aiden Markram came out and he kept going. They've certainly decided that they are going to play highly volatile cricket. And perhaps what is happening to the Sunrisers also is what happened to England with Bazball. They took teams a little bit by surprise by going so damn hard with players who were set to do that, to be fair. And then when form started to regress a little bit, they now look a little bit different. I don't know. Interesting that we've seen them play for net run rate 2 games in a row. Although they didn't quite get there. They still got bowled out in this one. This is their true values by face this season. This one has been quite often because Abhishek and Travis Head have been going out. And this is when Aiden Markram has been coming in. And this is not including today, of course. But you can see in the power play just how ridiculous they have been. They're scoring at 2 runs and over more than everyone else. And they've been averaging 17 runs more than everyone else. And they've been fantastic at the death, but not as fantastic as you would expect given those starts. But they're still, 0.6 runs and over better than everyone else and averaging quite good. But it's that late middle, that sort of, and that's really the Klaasen and whoever is set with Klaasen at that stage, that ability to score at a run and over more than everyone else while still averaging quite good. Travis Head, this is the strike rate of batters today. That was probably the last time they were ahead in this game. Once Head went out, Abhishek hit that ball to deep point, and it's a little bit disappointing. Markram is the one I really thought looked fantastic today. I would say of everyone I saw, he was the one that looked the absolute best, and just couldn't really get anywhere. But look at how many batters they've used. That's the real story here. And not all of these guys went from going hard. Nitesh wasn't scoring particularly quick. Klaasen wasn't scoring particularly quick. Samad got stuck as well, right? And Shabazz weirdly ended up with a strike rate of 140, and he was playing for net run rate. CSK bowlers, we have, I thought Chahar is worth mentioning here because he swung the ball around quite a bit and did brilliantly. Deshpande went for runs but took wickets. Mustafiza actually bowled quite well until these last over at the death. But Jadeja obviously is the story here, and he's partly the story here because he bowled with a wet ball and bowled so well. They just couldn't get him away. But what on earth was Samad doing trying to hit his bouncer? Was it Samad or Nitesh? I can't remember. Whoever it was, he got the bouncer. It was Nitesh, wasn't it? And tried to hit that down the ground. What on earth are you doing? If a spinner bowls you a bouncer, you hit the ball over the wicketkeeper's head where there is literally never going to be a fielder ever. You take the free 4 every single time. You're never going to get an easier shot than that. Trying to muscle it away unless the ball's down leg side or massively wide doesn't make any sense at all. Shardul was fantastic today, by the way, and him and Unadkat, I just said before, they're 2 of the most expensive bowlers in IPL history. I think they are the 2 most expensive in runs per over, and they both bowled fantastic today. And Partharana, that was an incredible over of, if you were watching the win predictors or, actually the betting market was maybe the most interesting one because he was bowling wides down the leg side because the ball was wet and he couldn't hold it. And then suddenly he got a Yorker out of nowhere. That was huge. Absolutely a huge moment getting rid of Markram. This is true values in the power play by team. You can see here that the Sunrisers don't really take all that many wickets, and their true economy is fine. So they've been quite defensive in that period. And then you've got Chennai down here, who have not been taking wickets in the power play at all, and about neutral on that. it'll be interesting to see as the season goes on whether the spinners play a bigger part in that and they can get away with a little bit more, especially if Patharana is injured. Tikshana might come back in. They might have some spinning wickets at home. True balls per 6 conceded this season. Patharana is 18.94 and Bumrah is at 23.85. That doesn't include today. He got hit for 1 6 today. He almost never gets hit for sixes. These two guys never get hit for sixes, and this is the other guy. When they're in and those chases get up really high, what you're going to see is boundaries, not sixes. Boundary fours, I should say, and not sixes, which is one worth remembering. Patharana's 0 to 6s this season. You can see there he is. Why can I not read the numbers? He is 171% less likely to go for a 6 than any other bowler. You can see, though, he does get hit for a few 4s. He's 12% up on 4s. The weird one is the 2s. I don't know why he's easier to milk than any other players, but he's got a huge dot ball percentage as well. CSK today, I said the innings fizzled out, which is a little bit unfair because they did get to 13th. But I suppose I was waiting for the big boom in the last 2 overs. That early death period, I thought they did very, very well. But I was expecting a really big one. I do think the ball went a little bit soft. And we saw that even in both games. Even when they replaced the ball, it seemed to go a little bit soft. So it was a wicket that was a lot easier to score early on when the ball was hard, which is probably why Sunrisers struggled so much. This is the true values by phase this season. So you can see they're not losing a lot of wickets this year. For this competition, they're incredibly boring. They start very, very slow and they amp up towards the end. They are really playing very much like this is, old-fashioned T20 cricket. But I think they're good enough to still win a lot of games from that. I think they're about 6-1 to win the whole thing. And this is the strike rate today. He's got a strike rate of 250, but should have been caught, of course. Shivan Dubé took forever to get going, but eventually hit a couple of 6s. Mitchell, I think, probably needed to go a little bit higher, and this is a really good innings from Ruturaj. I really enjoyed that innings a lot. And we got Ruturaj's strike rate possession in his last 2 seasons. So we could see he's certainly last 2 seasons, I was going to say. This is why I think his thumb is so important. He's getting up to around 2 runs a ball, and then he's settling in that sort of 170, 180 range for the rest of his innings. There's no flat spots, right? You can argue that outside of the power play, he slows down. But if you're slowing down to a strike rate of 170, 180, that's one of the few tips I will ever accept. Sunrisers bowlers economy rate today. You got Nitish going at 8 runs and over. He just bowled the 1 over, though, so not particularly important from that point of view. I thought Unadkat was the pick of the bowlers, especially late on. We were on Cricket 8 at the time, and Rob Barron put all of his money on Unadkat to go for more than 14 runs in that 19th over, and it didn't happen. That is a big, big win for them. If he can be 10 runs and over from here to the end of the season, that is a plus. Right, that's how much IPL's changed. Also, in many other seasons, he went at 10 runs and over, and no one wanted him. Which tells you just how we're in a weird world here. Gujarat runs per over. You can see that incredibly slow start. I really like this period, and they did end up progressing quite well in here. Can you afford really to be at 7 runs and over in a power play? This looks great on a progression, but some teams are scoring at 20 runs and over in this period towards the end, right? You can't make up for the 6 overs at the start, I think, if you play that way. And if we look at them here, so they're not getting out, but they are 1.2 runs per over slower than all the other teams in the power play so far. Those runs really, really add up. And they're also 1 run and over slower there, and they are basically almost 1 run and over there. Their death batting is fine, but it should be fine. Because of the way that their batting lineup is set up, but they're only marginally better than average at the death. Right, this is average right here. It's a real concern, and I think it's a real concern more because they don't have attacking bowling either. Shah Rukh Khan, I talked about this in the intro, I think. I thought his innings was absolutely fantastic. I love that they promoted him, and I love the way that he went about it. Really, really clever, good hitting. He's such a strong guy. He's waiting for the ball to be in the right area. Exactly what you want. And Sudarshan, you're going to get nothing but love from me, from Sudarshan from here for the rest of the time. He stopped going out when he gets past 45, or at least he has the last couple of innings. I thought he batted beautifully today, and there was a little point where I thought he might retire out when he got to around, I want to say 55-ish. I think that's right, where I got a little bit nervous for him, and then he started hitting fours again. Maybe the issue here is he can't hit sixes at the other end, but, you know, they'll take that. So you can see here, he did let his strike rate dip, but he managed to work it back up to 150 by the 20 ball mark. I don't think he can really... What's this? From the 10th ball to the 20th ball, he's scoring in a run of ball. He shouldn't be doing that, and he's a better player than that. But getting it back up to 171, I think that's fantastic. If he can keep this around 130 rather than down to closer to a run of ball in here and still bat long and get you a couple of boundaries at the end, he's a really interesting player. However, they need hitters around him. He's not an interesting player if everyone bats at a similar pace to him. And at the moment, you look at that lineup, and maybe that's why they sent Shah Rukh Khan up, and I'm all for that. This is his true value, true strike rate progression this season. This is excluding today. So the 20 ball mark is when he is at his absolute slowest. What a legend this man is. I don't even know how to explain a shape like this. And just having a look at who he attacked today, he went after Cameron Green at 2 runs a ball and Khan Sharma. This is a bit of an issue that he would have liked to. And also, I'm not sure if he went that much up against Swapnil. Struggled again a little bit with the left arm seamer today. This is RCB's economy rates today. I said it in the intro that I thought Swapnil bowled really, really well. I was really impressed by him. These guys have all bowled well. Right, you would take all 4 of these bowlers. You can't have. I think they had 6 overs from these guys today. Khan Sharma, what's he? 2 overs a game on a spinning wicket at the moment, and Cameron Green, he's an over and a half a game, if we're being honest. This is RCB's runs per over by phase. So I thought they started this chase really, really smart. They continued to go. I liked Virat's energy. It wasn't always smashing the ball, but it looked like he wanted to smash it occasionally. And then Will Jacks went absolutely bananas. I was saying before on Cricket 8 that they're a really dangerous side to play now because they do have the ability to score a lot of runs very, very fast. They just haven't been doing it. And now without the pressure, the only thing that sort of could keep them in check is if Virat Kohli starts to try to be the leading run scorer and he plays within himself. The rest of the guys... Faf has a free hit for the rest of the year if they keep picking him. Will Jacks and Maxwell, it doesn't really matter to them. Cameron Green, Dinesh Karthik, all these guys. There's a lot to like there from a sloggy point of view for the rest of the year. This is the strike rates today. Virat Kohli, 159. I think he was trying to go big at the end. It didn't happen. I thought Faf showed that he was going to get on top, and then Will Jacks went at 243. He was 17 off 17, and it's remember how bad he looked early on. He couldn't pick Nur Ahmed at all. He was almost bowled and caught behind off the same ball off Rashid Khan. And then absolutely went ballistic and might have changed his career path. And to be honest, I think he was pretty highly thought of, certainly by England. So I think from that perspective, he would have got a few bites at the cherry if he would have got a couple of big innings from England. But in the short term, he's a very good chance of being retained, I think, especially with his all-round ability. This is his runs and strike rate progression. So this is 17 off 17. And then it went absolutely berserk after that. Incredible hitting. Unfortunately, I lost all innings by that, all interest by that point. But we could see in the first innings of T20 games, IPL games, Virat Kohli has 4,200 runs and he's negative on true strike rate, but he's a +9 on true average. So good anchor, I would say, in the first innings. In the second innings, he is much better than a good anchor, right? He's got 3,500 runs. He's got a true strike rate of 6.1, which is, it's in the plus. So If you're an anchor, that's already good. And a true average of plus 11. That's what you would expect of one of the greatest chasers, if not the greatest chaser of all time. Virat Kohli strike rate versus spin in the IPL since 2018. You can see here, we've got 1 year at 134, and we've got sub 120, sub 120, sub 120, sub 120, and 135. This is what I like. It's clear that he has made a decision. 135 against spin is absolutely fine as long as he has Will Jacks and Glenn Maxwell and whoever else whacking at the other end. If it's Faf, and Faf is also going at 130, you're probably in less ideal, but it's very good. And this is exactly what if India are going to pick him, this is what he needs to keep doing. And this is his true strike rate versus spin in the IPL since 2018. So 2019, he was plus 12, and you can see he's been negative every year. He's still negative this year, and this has been a year where everyone is scoring a lot quicker against spin. So when you look at the true rates, some of these other years aren't quite as bad. He needs this to be closer to neutral, if we're being honest. But he's never going to look at true strike rate, and he's going to look at his strike rate and go, you asked me to up it, and I upped it. It's just that everyone else has upped it even more violently. And this is his strike rate in the power play. This is the other thing that they need him to do. This is the one I think has frustrated me the most with him, just because you shouldn't be able to stop Virat Kohli in a power play, right? Like, if Brian Lara doesn't play anymore, Brian Lara is probably the other player who, in a 360-degree sort of situation, there's no field that you can set for those guys. They can hit almost any ball to any angle that they want. They can manipulate the field. They can manipulate the boundary riders and everything else. He should be able to score at a strike rate of 140, 150 in the power play without actually taking the sort of risk that another normal player would have to take. Oops, this one here. And Oberzai swung the ball around today and did very, very well. You look at this bowling lineup, and I talked about it in the intro. The main skill of this bowling lineup is supposed to be these three guys here, right? So Rashid got hammered today, but most of that hammering was after this thing was out of the game. Let's push that to one side. But I don't think he's been as good as he has in previous years. Noor Ahmed went at 10 runs and over today, and one of the batters he was bowling against couldn't pick him. He's got to do better than that. He has got to do better than that. And Mohit's gone at 20s again. So you look at this lineup and you say, Omerzai can swing the ball, will get you 1.5 wickets on average if he keeps up good form for the rest of the year. Kishore is a good defensive bowler. He's gone at 10 runs and over this game. Rashid is a defensive bowler who picks up a couple of wickets. Noor Ahmed isn't picking up enough wickets. How are they going to get enough wickets? And they don't have a death bowler, and they don't really have a frontline bowler to bowl at the front. So many things have to go right for them from here on in for them to be a genuine threat. And I'm seeing it less and less as this goes on. Anyway, that's the end of the scoreboard part of the show, but we've got a couple of super chats here. We'll play a quick break, and then after the break, we will come back with your questions in the room on, what do we call the show? We'll call it Scoreboard.
This is brought to you by Cricket 8. They are a new player in the game trying to educate fans on what is really happening in cricket. We have a partnership with them where we host live watch-alongs, do podcasts, and write articles. If you want to know what is really happening with our game, visit cricket8.com. If you make any content, Minvo Pro is the tool for you. Take your long format content and cut it and slice it for social media. This AI-inspired weapon will turn your one piece of work into so many clips. Try Minvo.pro now.
Welcome back to the Scoreboard. We've got a few questions here, and we'll finish up. And some really nice super chats too, starting with, oh my God, Garesh. Garesh, I don't think we've seen him much during the IPL. He says, this has been an exciting IPL, but I personally feel the impact sub rule has to go. It has become 12 on 12 instead of 11 on 11 game. It's led to profusion of runs, but at the loss of multi-dimensional players. I don't really like the impact sub. I would have either you stick with 11 versus 11, or you go 15 versus 15. This is just a toe in the water. It's not for me, Garesh, if we're being honest. But if you're going to have subs, have subs. Don't piss about with it. Have actual subs, and have teams the ability to do that going ahead. This is, neither one thing. It's the Bob Kunis of, I can't believe I'm making a Bob Kunis joke on here, but it's neither one thing nor the other. You might need to Google Bob Kunis, some of you, to get that joke. some of yous. Went back to my Bogan roots there. Chitra says, did Sunrisers already write off this game in their pre-tournament calculations, so they decided to gamble by chasing? Why wouldn't Pat Cummins have gotten the toss? Why couldn't Pat Cummins have gotten the toss wrong? Did Sunrisers write off this game in their pre-tournament calculations? Yeah, I don't know. I believe that they would be okay with the chase. The way I think that wicket was a little bit. I think when we saw the better bowlers on it, we saw there was a little bit more on that wicket. And if you were listening on live on Cricket 8, we did talk about the fact that there was a couple of times we thought there was a little bit more in that wicket at times, and the fact that Chennai couldn't kick on at the end suggested that if you could bowl correctly, you're okay there. The one thing I would say is that Sunrisers, you still think to yourself, yeah, but if they are none for 80 after the power play, this is not a particularly big chase. And they certainly started like that. But it was probably, now looking back on it, a game you had to be none for 80 in the power play. Box says, do you think the fielding team are letting the ball hit the ground instead of catching it in a free hit to make the ball softer? I think it's probably more likely. The way that everyone's been fielding in this tournament, it's probably safer to let the ball hit the ground. I don't think it's about softening the ball specifically. It might be. It's an interesting one. There's no way you would do it with dew around, though. You would keep the ball up as long as possible if it was dewy. Vishal says, what's your opinion on replacing net run rate with head-to-head records for point table tiebreakers? Yep, big fan of that. What else? I think net run rate is okay, but I do think you need to factor in wickets as well. So the big problem with net run rate, if you remember back to the 2015 World Cup, is when New Zealand are chasing 150, whatever it is, against Australia, and they get their 9 wickets down, but they get there in the 25th over or whenever it was, and because of that, they end up with a big net run rate. But that doesn't make any sense. They almost lost that game, right? They went really close, 8 wickets down or whatever it was, to losing that game. So how do you get a net run rate boost? What you should be doing is factoring in the entire game. So I think net run rate is already flawed, right? So they used to do run rate, by the way, which is absolutely bizarre because that depends on the pitches that you play on. So yeah, I do think there's an issue there, and I like tiebreakers more. I think they use that in the NBA. I'm trying to think of some other leagues that they might do something similar on. But I think there are other ways of looking at it, Vishal, and I'm not against you at all on that one. Abdullah says, why do left-handed seamers tend to have a more naturally slingier action? Compare Stark with having a low release point than Cummins, despite being taller. Also, why Rhea, Sheen, better for in-swing. It is better for in-swing, but it is specifically because it's exactly the same if you look at left-arm wrist spinners. It's because if you're a left-arm, it's all left-arm bowlers generally collapse, and it's because they are trying to bowl an unnatural line. God, what's the best way of putting it? If you're a right-arm bowler, you usually have a really strong front left arm, and that is because you are bowling to right-handers more often than not, and the majority of your balls are right-handers, so a strong front arm makes a lot of sense. If the majority of batters were left-handers, right-arm bowlers would actually have a weak front arm because they'd be trying to fall away a little bit to get that angle across. And when you fall away with your body, you then have a naturally a lower release point. So they're not all slingier. It's to do with their actual stance. And if it's the way that they are trying to get the ball to pitch on a different line than everyone else. And I know it's weird, but it works really, really subtly. And so left-arm wrist spinners and left-arm fast bowlers are the ones that it's most noticeable for. But it really is because of where they are aiming the ball, which is kind of across their body a little bit more, whereas right-arm bowlers to a right-arm batter are bowling directly down the line. I hope I made sense with that. Vishal says, how massive would a potential Patharana loss be for CSK, considering Fizz will be unavailable after the next match? It didn't look dreadful to me. I mentioned it, obviously, and I would be worried about it. At home, I don't know if it'll matter as much because I think at home they will get more and more wickets that will help them bowl spin, especially after Stephen Fleming and MS Dhoni have had a word. So you will get at home, I think it's fine. So they'll qualify. It's in the finals. If they don't have a lot of great death bowling, it could be a really big issue. Deshpande, Shardul Thakur, Chahar, None of them are plus death bowlers at the moment. If Deshpande's your best death bowler going into that, it's hard. But there are a bunch of finals at Chennai as well. So if the wickets do spin more at Chennai from here on in, which is what I would be banking on, I think from that perspective, it is not the end of the world. However, you've got to factor in that this is it could be a big loss because they could lose both of them back to back. That would be not ideal. And then finally, San, he was on the Cricket 8 stream today, and at that last bet for unders saved him. So we've done some great work on Cricket 8, and hopefully it was still enjoyable to watch. But these two games are really, really hard to do a watch along on. And by the end, we had completely lost interest. Once all of our bets had either won or lost, we had no interest at all. But poor San had an unders bet that was too close for comfort, but in the end, he got home pretty comfortably there. So remember, during the rest of this IPL, go and subscribe to the Cricket 8 YouTube channel. We actually run that from this platform as well. And we'll be putting more and more content up. You can see some of the podcasts that me and Rob do. Rob has got some fire takes. So Rob has said that the two teams that cannot win the IPL are Sunrisers and KKR. Go and listen to his podcast over there about why he thinks that is the case. But he's been really, really full on. And then he followed it up with Delhi is a chance of winning the IPL from here, which he's got two bets on Delhi at the moment. One is for them to finish last from the start of the season, and he's now got another bet on them to win the whole thing. That tells you, A, how massively this tournament has changed. This tournament has been Fraser McGurked one way or another. Anyway, thank you to San and to everyone else for their support again today. I am Jared Kimber. This is Scoreboard. We've got the power list coming up tomorrow and many, many other things that will be coming as well. And we will see you again very soon. And we've got what have we got tomorrow? We've got the other podcast with Bayram as well. So plenty of content on this channel, on the Cricket 8 channel, and also on my main channel. I'm everywhere.
There is no point having talent around you if you don't use it correctly. Every captain knows this, and it is the same of the sport of cricket as when you are trying to win Raid Shadow Legends, which sounds like a new cricket league if we're being honest. The difference is that instead of taking down arrogant openers or massive power hitters, you are fighting the Demon Lord and the Hydra. So if you want to use your leadership smarts from cricket in a new way, sign up to Raid Shadow Legends and participate in their Spring Hunt event where you can win some real life prizes such as gaming consoles, Amazon gift cards with a total value of $10,000 and a lot of other in-game prizes like legendary champions and more. All you've got to do is get Raid using the link in my description, enter in your Raid ID and join the competition at springhunt.polarium.com. But the heart of any game is... This is brought to you by Cricket 8. They are a new player in the game trying to educate fans on what is really happening in cricket. We have a partnership with them where we host live watch-alongs, do podcasts, and write articles. If you want to know what is really happening with our game, visit cricket8.com. If you make any content, Minvo Pro is the tool for you. Take your long format content and cut it and slice it for social media. This AI-inspired weapon will turn your one piece of work into so many clips. Try Minvo.pro now.